I'd like to everyone to give a big round of applause for our sponsors tonight, Sedulo, AFX and Bransford. Give them a round of applause, please. So, please welcome our first speaker, and he is the star of SkySports. He's also really, really hard, so I've got to say that. He had an incredible playing career, and now he's one of the leading lights on Sky Television. That's Barrie McDermott. Our second guest is an MBE, and he's the most successful coach in the history of any coach going to Headingley and getting positive results. And he's hoping that's going to follow him this week as he's part of the Toronto Wolfpack, and that is Noble. Sit wherever you want, mate. And lastly, a guy I know really well. He's been one of my best friends and a business partner through an amazing journey with Rugby AM. But he's also, his day job has allowed him to win 8 grand final victories. Eight rings. 8 rings. He's won away from JP, but he's done it all in one club, so it's better. Please welcome Jones Buchanan. Barrie, the teeth are looking good, mate. Absolutely outstanding. They are TV teeth.
I'm feeling really good. Where's Chloe? Chloe at the back. When I walked in this evening, Chloe said, and who are you with? And I said, I'm that fella there. She said, well, you look much better now. I said, that is 20 years ago, so I'm happy with that. That's a compliment, that, Chloe. Thank you. So I feel $1 million.
20 years ago, does it feel like yesterday? Because it was really the start of the Leeds Rhinos golden generation, 1999. It was the year Jamie made his debut, and you must have known him then as a young, annoying kid. What would Jamie like back then, Barrie? Any stories for us?
Shall I tell the story, Jones?
Tell her a story. We want his stories tonight.
Go for it, mate. When Jamie Jones Buchanan used to get picked, I was always a good motivator of men, and I used to say, my God, Jonesy, we must be short this week if you're making the side. That was my way of boosting his confidence. But I saw in Jonesy what I think we see now, a really measured, really deliberate young man that knew what he wanted, and it didn't matter what was going to get in his way. And he's had lots of injuries, lots of setbacks, lots of adversity, but he's done it all with that glowing smile and kept his dignity in under severe circumstances. So anybody that knows Jonesy, anybody that's spent any time with or around him will see what he's doing and think it's not an accident. It's for him. It's hard work and dedication that gets him where he is.
Jonesy, when you made your debut in '99, your name's that long. They put it on 2 shirts, a home and an away shirt. Tell us that story.
Yeah, obviously Leeds lad, born and bred, grown up supporting everything Leeds United, Leeds RL, and used to go up there after my standing amateur games and watch him, see some of my heroes, and it was a bit of a dream really to play for my hometown club. And I always tell the story when I walked in there, Graham Murray gave me my debut. I walked in the changing rooms and I'm looking round for my shirt, which should say Jones Buchanan up back, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And obviously I walked past Baz, who's told me that we're obviously short if I'm playing, and then he'd follow that up by saying, whatever you do, don't drop the ball, because if you do, you'll never get another chance again. I'm already stressed, and I'm looking around, and I'm trying to think, where's Jones Buchanan? Anyway, long story short, I seen one shirt that had Jones up back. So I thought, that must be it, there's nobody else called Jones in the Leeds team. So I sat down and waited for Kitman, who's the second most stubborn man I've ever met, to come back in. And when he walked in, I says, is this my shirt? He goes, yeah. I said, well, why's it only got half my name on him? He went, rest of it won't fit. I went, you're having a laugh? We've got New Zealanders out here playing in Super League with every letter in alphabet on the back of the shirt. Mine won't fit. And he says, it will not fit. So anyway, it's my debut. I'm going to get too up on that. And what he'd done in his infinite wisdom is put Jones on home shirt, Buchanan on away shirt. So I always say, and it's true as this, you get your casual Leeds fans going to away games, and they're like that. Who's this Buchanan? He's worse than that Jones who played last week. And honest truth, it took 7 years for me to get my full name on the back of the shirt. I always blamed him for the fact that I didn't have a song. So Baz had a song, Keith Senior had a song. Whenever I scored a try, I did a decent tackle, which wasn't often. It was like tumbleweed blowing through stadium. Walking back on side, I thought, I'm just a local lad, you know what to say about a prophet in his hometown. But 7 years in, I got my full name up back of my shirt. Roy eventually miraculously found a way to fit it all on, which I've had ever since. Scored a try, walking back on side, they all start singing, Jamie Jones, Jamie Jones, Jamie Jones. He's got no song, his name's too long, Jamie Jones. So it transpired that there isn't a so because my name's too long, and I'm known now as JJB. It's interesting, last 6 months they've started singing he's got no song because he's played too long, Jamie Jones. So I don't know how much more of a career I've got left, but it's been, as Baz mentioned, it has been a bit of a golden decade and a real privilege to have represented my hometown team for so long.
Brian, Jamie mentioned that the second most stubborn man he knows, because I think the first, I reckon it's Jamie Peacock, the first one, and that's someone you know really, really well. He's a star on and off the field, and you had the privilege of coaching him down at Bradford, and it must have been hard, obviously, when he went and over to your hated Leeds.
I find all these conversations very difficult. I'm from Bradford, which is over the hill, and spent a lifetime as a player and as a coach, hating the pants off these two people, particularly. Well, not him, he's quite a nice bloke, but this bloke here, I have no time for him whatsoever. What was the question?
Jamie Peacock. What were like?
Peacock.
What were you like, and how did it feel when he
Clumsiest
left?
man in the history that I ever signed, because he'd missed the cut at Leeds. We actually tried to sign him from you were at Stanley, weren't you?
Yeah.
Jamie Peacock had missed the cut and was playing for the 18s, and somebody had given me a tip that there's this kid playing that Leeds don't want, etc., etc. So I went one windy afternoon up at Coal Hill at Stanningley to watch him, and it was a terrible day. It was horizontal, driving rain. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't be asked getting out of the car. I thought, if nobody's picked him up now, I'm not going to. So I've had the flickers on going like this, my feet on the thing, and seeing all the kids running out. So I've got to at least do the kick-off, give him the privilege of doing the kick-off. And it's got a bit of a slope, hasn't it, that main pitch where they played. So everybody, and you could see Jamie Peacock, he walked out like a Thunderbird puppet, you know, all disjointed, and I'm thinking, Christ, I hope that's not him. It's a waste of time, already written him off. And they kicked off, and he zoomed down into the corner with all the rest of his team in dark red, and he ran the other way, nowhere near the ball. And I'm thinking, what on earth is he doing? Anyway, he was appalling right throughout the game. But he tried to be appalling on 60 occasions. So he tried to do 30 tackles and 30 carries, all dropping the ball, everything. But you could see he had a huge heart. So I thought, there's a bit of legs in this kid. He's a big kid as well. He was where he's in the cloud, 6'5". And his dad was there, Darryl. And I sat him down and said, just out of interest, why did you chase the other way on the kickoff? He says, I can't see. He says, it was Morrison's carrier bag I was chasing. I thought it was a ball. So we got him some contact lenses and he just improved. But the biggest attribute that Jamie had was his desire he had more obstacles put in his way than any other player that I know. Yeah. And by the time that Leeds got him, we'd polished him and refined him and made him the unbelievable player he was. So they had nothing to do with him. That's why he was so successful. But we actually sent him out to Australia to toughen up. He was working on some part of his story. He was a doorman to supplement his wages because we didn't pay him enough. He was playing for St George Reserves. He was playing in the Collegians, the Illawarra League, which is tough. To supplement that, he had to fight for himself and be a bouncer. He came back to Bradford then when I'd taken over as head coach, and we sent him to Featherstone on loan. And so clearly, as a kid that probably not wasn't wanted, but clearly wasn't ready for that. But he just willed himself, and he got one opportunity in the first team, and he never looked back. So if I was to pinpoint JP's, and he wears it on his heart on his sleeve, does he? But his courage and his willingness to improve. He never stopped walking like a Thunderbird, man. He does now. But his desire, and I remember when Tony Smith signed him. Now, I'm not compromising Tony Smith in any way. The big thing I had with Jamie Peacock as a coach was he would never push in the line. That basically means if us three were here and he made a break, he wanted the next person to be really close to him. Jamie Peacock wouldn't do that, and he looked tired all the time. And Tony Smith ran me and says, he'll never play my first team. I've just got this kid. I said, what are you talking about? I says, is he looking like he's not pushing? Because his very next play, he'll do a play that wins you the game. He'll have carried 6 people over the line or something, and it's just his way. He just wouldn't push. He just wasn't part of his game. But as a person, the long answer to your short question is that's probably what's got him to the top. Any obstacle that was put in his way, he refused to give in.
And getting you to the top because you had an incredible playing and coaching career, and you've ended up with this amazing job. I think it's probably the best job in Rugby League because you're a director of football working with some fantastic people in Toronto, breaking ground. And I personally, I've just been there. I just got off a plane yesterday, and the improvement in a year for how that stadium is, the ethos of the people there, the team there, is unparalleled. I've never seen a club improve so much in such a short space of time. And it's just given me such a strong belief that it's a huge opportunity for the sport. How do you feel about it? And because I'm just an outsider looking in, but you're on the inside, and you have the worries, the pressures, the financial. You're in all those meetings with Super League, and you're looking forward. But how are you feeling about the Wolfpack right now, Brian?
It's a great question. Behind the scenes, it's not quite as smooth as it appears. As with any organisation, there are clunky bits, there are things that we need to do better. But the speed of which we've gone in 2 years, from a blank piece of paper, literally, I sat in a room with a fellow called Eric Perez, who's no longer with us now. He's moved on to other things. With a blank piece of paper in a new country, with the prospect of a 7-hour flight one way, if you're lucky, a 5.5-hour flight coming back. How on earth is this ever going to work? And the speed at which we've gone, clearly we've made mistakes as well along the way, behind the scenes, and swept up after those, tried not to wash our dirty linen in public, kept the front that we've always wanted. To be where we're at, on the cusp of what's been an unbelievable qualifying situation, to get into Super League in a 2-year period is nothing short of miraculous with some of the things that we've had to go through logistically alone. Should people be as enthused as I am? I've done a lot of things in the game, as these two know, and clearly have as well. It is potentially the most exciting thing that's happened to our game, and I want people to walk away with that, not just from a football point of view, from the country itself. Toronto has shocked me, because I've been all over the world. I've never seen it. For a big city, it's got a small village feel, it's multicultural. The fans now, you have to be careful what you say, because they actually understand rugby league. Yeah. In year one, it was like the MMA and NFL mix. There's just a load of blokes bashing each other non-stop for 80 minutes. You've got to go watch this. It's crazy. But now they've educated themselves, and they're intelligent to the game. We had the major newspaper in Toronto, a city of conurbations, what is it, 6 million, 8 million? I can't remember. It's the 4th biggest city in the Americas and the 3rd largest city in North America. So it's a vibrant, busy business place. But the people that come where Liberty Village is, our stadium, are all the millennials. So it's young people, it's kids, and it's kids running around a field with balls in their hand. And some of the fights that are taking place at this side of the pond, sometimes behind the scenes, we don't need to be privy to, but you can understand it's not quite been as smooth sailing as possibly it looks. I just think it's got massive, massive potential to not only... I save our games a bit too hard. We've been going for 130 years and we'll continue to go. But if you have a vision and a dream of a game that I have, and if you were honest at this top table we probably have, then I think it's an absolute no-brainer. But Toronto, even if you're a business that doesn't understand rugby league, the amount of connections you can make are incredible.
Can I just jump in a little bit on that? I was sent a number of years ago a little YouTube clip, and it was a game between Canada and America. I think it's at the same stadium.
You did?
I think it's at Lamport Stadium.
It was.
I watched it. I looked at the full crowd, and I looked at, got a feel as far as you can watching it on the internet of the atmosphere, and I was taken back. I was shocked, like everybody. You think, well, what's going on here? It can't be rugby league. It must be rugby union. There must be some little catch. And I think it's phenomenal how the country has embraced our sport, without a doubt, but the people within our sport have looked at it and thought, right, there's some edges to knock off, and clearly we've been down the road of franchise teams before and not quite got it right. But I think if you look at the example that Catalan have brought such a cosmopolitan feel to our game, and I've been to Catalan a number of times. I've had some excellent experiences as a punter watching the game, and also as a punter having the full experience, which is going around the bars and the pubs and having a thoroughly good time. And I can tell you that Catalan do it really well. Logistically, Toronto has some other issues to deal with, but as a game, we must make those issues less, and we've got to support the club, and we've got to support that movement, because if it sprouts off to another team, and New York and some of the other offers that are on the table, it could take us to the level that we desire, because if we're all honest in the room, there's some changes that need to be made at all different levels, all manner of changes. But most of us in the game congratulate Toronto and the people within it. So it's on course and it's going well, and you know, we're going to do what we can.
Just to set the scene for everybody in the room who might not be a rugby league enthusiast. Rugby league obviously is a sport that's been going over 130 years, as Brian mentioned, and it's in a real sense of change at the moment, because there's the RFL that have run the game for so many years, and then Super League, which is the competition that drives the game forward. It's the premier competition. There's been a split recently, so Super League have decided that they need more money and they want to go on their own and their own management team, and it's left a huge sense of disruption in the sport. I also believe that's a huge opportunity, especially for businesses, because rugby league is one of the few national sports, international sports, that you can get involved with for a fairly decent price to get some good access, get good engagement and good reach. The players are phenomenal. The players will work with brands, they'll work with businesses, and they really buy into the support of businesses. So from my own experience, it's been a fantastic journey so far. That's something we will touch on later and try and give you a sense of how business and rugby league can work together. One of the key things that has caused the division and the split is the TV money. So rugby league currently, 74% of its income total comes from Sky TV, which is a good thing. And obviously Barry's going to shed some light on this now.
He takes 72% of that.
Yeah. Those teeth, 13%. But it's
That's where it's all gone wrong, Baz. You've got all the money.
Just keep looking at that fella. I can pull him out any minute.
But I mean, 74% of your income coming through a TV deal gives the TV broadcaster in Sky total power. If Sky want whatever they want, we have to jump, and that's that. And the sport's got to look at new ways of bringing more revenue. But Sky have also been the key driver to the success of where we are today. In 2021, the sport is going to go in two ways. We'll either get a new TV deal from Sky or from an Amazon or so many different broadcasting services now that'll take us up towards, never football because it's our national sport, but towards rugby union. Or we won't, and it'll go towards greyhound racing and stuff like that. But it's a similar kind of, that's what happened with various different sports. But where
you make a really important point there, because the competition now for any sport is massive.
Yeah.
You look at young people, they're into drone racing.
Yeah.
So that's as likely to get the Sky money as anything else. So when we're talking about the future of rugby league, we have to change. And that's not can be a difficult thing to do. But if we're in competition with everybody for the book, then we've got to be better than we are now, and we've got to offer something different. And so to sit there and just wait for 2021 to come along and not do something about it ourselves, the game, I mean. And you're quite right, the war, if that's the right, civil war is disruptive and will continue to be, because that's the way we tend to do our business. But it's a huge wake-up call. And just to reinforce the fact that Sky are our benefactors, since 2006, when I left the Bulls, so if we look at our major competitors for the oval ball, if you like, Rugby Union and the National Rugby League, where the National Rugby League in Australia, I think their salary cap's equivalent to £6 million or £5 million a year. Ours next year will go to £2 million. Well, what does that mean? It takes away from the game that we have now all the superstars. We've seen probably one who would maybe kind of get into that category this year, Ben Barber, who's been and he came over because he was at a misdemeanor in the NRL and they booted him out, so he wanted to come and play somewhere. So we're not actually attracting players, but he puts kids go home from school and say, I want to play like Ben Barber because he does things on that field. I want to play like the Greg Inglis's of this world. But we're not quite attracting those players because of, and I'll get to my point, I know I'm labouring this, the same with Rugby Union from 2006 and the advent of their professionalism and the Premiership League that they've got now. rugby union, we can't attract. I grew up in an era with the Jonathan Davises, and Terry Holmes was the person that we had, but Scott Gibbs at Leeds, who you might have touched shoulders with, and things like this. We're internationals from Wales and England that added colour to our game, and we're exciting players. People came home and kids wanted to say, I want to be like that superstar. Nobody ever said it about JJB. I don't want to be like JJB. That's not true, actually, because when I tried to sign you, you were a very, very exciting player. It changes.
He peaked at about 14.
Yeah. And so what I'm saying, from 2006, the actual truth of our game is that our revenue stream, our revenue income is at 25% of those two competitors. So if we wanted to go get players from the NRL, and they all wanted to come, all the players wanted to come. Ali Lawatiti was probably the last big one from Leeds. He was the world's best back rower then, and they had him at Leeds, and we were all jealous. Oh, I've got him at Leeds. That's why we hate Leeds, because they could afford him. Rugby union, we're at 25% of the revenue streams of rugby union in relation to salaries and what a rugby union player can earn and what an NRL player can earn in relation to bringing ready-made superstars, or not ready-made superstars, because we used to attract rugby union players that wanted to crack, and they still wanted. You asked all their top players, they still want to play rugby league, because the one thing that we've got going in our favour is the product is absolutely outstanding. And why is it outstanding? For 130 years, people from mills and things have stood on the terraces. We're not watching that shit. We're not watching that. Change the rules. Change the rules. We aren't paying him that much, £5 out of the mill. But change the rules. Make it more exciting. Put it in play more. So now we have a game that's in play for 60-odd minutes because of the rules that we've developed. That's fast and that's exciting. That's in play more than any other team sport in the world. That is unbelievably attractive to a new audience with 8,500 in Toronto. Why? Because they belt the snot out of each other and play attractive football, and people love that and go to a beer. And the kids love to see superstars and different people of different sizes and different shapes. We've got an unbelievable product, and we get stuck in the mud. We get stuck in the mog.
I agree, and I won't tell you his name, but a very prominent rugby union player who works in the media said to me that in rugby league, we're a little bit arrogant because we think that the game sells the product, and the industry that we're in is the entertainment industry. I believe it's simply a three-pronged attack. We've got to get more people playing, we've got to get more people watching, and we've got to get more money coming into the game. The answers to those three questions are long-term. They're a 10-year plan at the very least, and it's 123 years, not 130, by the way. And you had Robbie, Henry, Vangener, Vinocola.
Yep.
There's four, yeah.
Happy.
They weren't bad.
Paul Brothers.
Paul Brothers.
The salary cap were a guideline for you lot at Bradford, anyway.
Barry, I want to ask you all a question, because I'm interested in all three of your opinions. And we'll start with you, Barry, because you are the man in the room from Sky. You're a key part of their team, and you will continue to be so, and only grow within that team. But where do you want to see the TV deal for the sport in 2022? What's Barry's vision for the sport on TV?
Well, I think there's got to be a joined-up approach. It can't be fans and spectators and stakeholders. If we put everybody under that umbrella, stakeholders pointing at the main media provider, i.e. Sky, saying how much are you going to give us, and it can't be Sky turning round to stakeholders saying, well, what are we buying? We've got to have a little bit of understanding of what both require. I know from being involved in, if the fans are here and the big wigs are there, I'm somewhere in the middle and I get to hear a lot. There are so many people who are passionate about rugby league with a respect for the people that are involved in it and the people that play in it that they could only dream of in other sports. But what they also see is empty stadiums. They also see a game that's disjointed at the minute, and I don't mean disjointed in terms of the Super League and the RFL. I think the game's at a real crossroads, and this is my own personal thoughts on it. But I also I'm influenced by people who I'm around. We've got a choice to make. Do we become like the UFC, that sells the brutality of it, that actually says, look at these fellas knocking the living snot out of each other, and they get back up and they play on, knowing that in today's society that's very much frowned on? or do we go the other way, which I think it looks like this a little bit at the minute, where it's almost a game of touch and pass, where you have a duty of care. I shudder when I hear the phrase, when making a tackle, you have a duty of care to the person you're tackling, because to make that tackle, you can't always think about the person on the other end of it.
You can't even have a duty of care for yourself.
You've got to, exactly, you've got to look after yourself within that. And it's a long time ago since I played. It's 11 years now. And for those of you that don't know, I had quite a few visits to the disciplinary panel, and one of the first 19 times actually. And I'd like to think they were vindictive and they were picking on me, but it's not. It's because I was a dirty bastard. But when I used to go up, the first question they'd ask me is, did you mean to hurt this player? Yes, I meant to hurt him. Because I wanted to hit him that hard that he couldn't do his job. Did I want to maim him? No. Did I want to injure him for the rest of his life? No. But in that exchange, in that contact, yes. And I think there's got to be a decision of, do we embrace the contact, the collision, and dare I say it, the violence of our sport, and control it as much as we can? Or do we make it a game of touch and pass and make it like, you know, the round ball game where anybody goes near any player or opposition and they fall on the floor? Then I think when we have full stadiums, when we have tremendous atmospheres, because the best games I go and I feel part of are in the full stadiums and the good atmospheres. And Jonesy will tell you as a player, Nobby will tell you as a player and a coach, that when you're involved in those occasions, the memorable occasions, and every minute matters in that occasion. It doesn't boil down to the desire to win and lose as much as it boils down to the fact that you don't want to let them people down, and you don't want to look like you don't care about the game.
So Sky, you'd like to see the game continue on Sky past 2022, and would that look at Sky only, or would you like to see, to me personally, I'd like to see more rugby on
more
TV.
More content, yes.
So would you like to see that on more Sky channels, if a Sky Rugby League channel?
Is it good for Sky to monopolise all the games, boss?
I think there is more than enough Rugby League being played, and we always chuck into the equation the Championship. I went to the best game I've seen in a good 6 weeks, Halifax against Leeds. Couple of thousand from Leeds, couple of thousand from Halifax, singing all afternoon, weren't they, Jonesy? We were only talking about it before. The way that Halifax embraced that game, the way that they sold it, the PR was amazing around it. Again, I go back to full stadium. Yeah. So the question of does Sky need to monopolise the game to make it successful? No, it doesn't. But it's up to the rest of the game. It's up to the individual clubs within it, i.e. Halifax at weekend, to sell the game.
Jonesy, let me come to you, because obviously outside of your day job as a player, you've had this broadcast journey with myself with Rugby AM, and we've started producing live Rugby League with the NCL this year. We've got the rights to that, and that's been insightful, if anything. What's your thoughts on post-2022? And obviously, you've got a bit of a different view, because our show, Rugby AM, is a magazine show. We don't have any highlights of the game, but we've managed to get 80,000 viewers on one show this year because of the quality of the content. So where does your mind sit now with the future of Rugby League on TV? Because that's going to be the driving factor of bringing money in and businesses in.
I think there's a lot before we get to post-22. I think we've got to start thinking about the narrative, the stories. As you know, I love telling stories. I'm a big believer that life's a narrative, and human beings are the only animals on the planet that tell stories. In fact, as far as we know, human beings are the only creatures that can abstract. And I want to use a guy that Nobby spoke about there, Eric Perez. I remember when Eric Perez turned up at the Ark in Edinburgh years ago with a little camera, a little DSLR, and a mate, who I can't remember his name. Corey. And yeah, that's the one. And he said, I've got a little TV show in Canada. I'm going to have my own team one day. I'm like, all the best, pal. We can't even do it. We can't even do it here. How on earth are you going to do it in Canada? And this weekend, I'm playing against a team that was his dream. It's manifested it into reality. And you know, I listen to a lot of people talk about the Earns, how good Barrie and Eddie Earn are at creating or rejuvenating sport in the UK. And I heard Barrie Earn come out with something ridiculous the other day. He had an idea of having a crazy golf championships. And said, imagine Tiger Woods knocking a ball in off a windmill.
It'd be amazing.
It'd be amazing.
It'd be amazing.
It's absolutely.
I love that.
It's a ridiculous idea, isn't it? But these people have these ideas and then they go create them. Now, Rugby League has got to do it in a little bit of a better way, and I think there's an agenda to do that. So in the past, we've always been these stereotype northern monkeys who are a little bit, not wrong with Johnny Vegas, but you know, the beer drinking, flat cap walking, whip it and racing post underarms from Featherstone. And I think, you know, there's always been a bit of an apathy from people down south. You know, these guys just living back to backs and running around with bow and arrows at dinner time to catch the dinner. And we've got to try and transcend that a little bit and change that perception, which we are doing. Now, I think if we can get Rugby League watched by anybody, by any means, just by talking about identity, that's fair enough. And just quickly, I was involved in a play this year called Playing the Joker. And Playing the Joker is about the late, great Eddie Waring, who spent a lot of time at Queen's Hotel out here. And apparently had a doorman called Dave. And in this play, I play Dave, and I'm his minder. And I watch Eddie Waring go on this journey where he's doing such a great job in terms of evangelising Rugby League that the whole nation's watching. And he's on things like It's a Knockout, Morecambe and Wise. It's the equivalent of Ant and Dec being the faces of Rugby League right now. But he almost started playing on his own stereotype in the third person. So he started being the Eddie Waring that everybody else was taking the mick out of. And it got to a point where the Northerners thought he was making such a mockery of Northerners that there was about 20,000 of them, some of which signed a petition in their own blood. Only people from Cass and Fev and that sort of backward place to do that. But they wanted to get rid of him. But this was a time when the Queen used to watch. This was a time when the Queen used to watch it. And this year is the 50th year of the Water Splash final, which for me is the greatest Rugby League game ever as a sort of screenplay. You know, 3 characters in there: Don Fox, Ed Wolfwaite, the referee, who sadly committed suicide within 12 months of that, and then Eddie Waring. And I did an interview with Neil Fox talking to him about it, doing some bits, and he went down to get, I think, an MBE or an OBE from the Queen. And when he's knelt down in front of her, she's looked at him and she says, "Neil Fox, are you the one that?" And he went, no, that was our kid. What me who missed the kick. But when you've got the Queen talking about it, and you've seen this revival of wrestling as well, haven't you? People back in grandstand days used to watch wrestling, and then Rugby League, it was almost this like dovetailed into this sort of working class. And I think the gladiatorial side of it that Baz mentioned is so important. Everybody intrinsically has this, I think, this almost love for combat. I think it's at our roots. It's in our, you know, what you want to call it, reptilian mind, mammalian mind, whatever you want to call it. It's at our roots, and I think we like to see that gladiatorial. And if we keep sanitising the game, that's fine. I've got young kids myself who are going to play Rugby League. I want their welfare to be paramount. I don't want it to be dangerous, and I'm not on about bringing in the shoulder charge, but we've got to celebrate that gladiatorial side of the game, because that's what people want to come and watch. So there's a lot to do pre that, and I've segued a little bit from your original question here, but the point I want to try and get across is I've run around with DSLRs with Alex for the last 5 or 6 years, tried to tell stories, showcase personalities within Rugby League. I think working class blue-collar people have got the best stories in the world, and they're from some of the most humble beginnings, but have still got the potential to be the world-class athletes that we need to animate. And just lastly, to use Toronto as a great example, I think they're outstanding at doing that, and I think that's because they're born out of a North American culture that celebrates sport. So at the minute, right, you'll know more than me, and I know there's some American people in here, but it's almost perception-wise, it seems like in America, sport runs parallel with education, and you can be a real hero just by your sporting ability. Over here, you've got to get maths, English, science, you've got to get A's, otherwise that's it. Schools and secondary schools aren't that bothered about the extracurricular sporting activities. In fact, I'm a governor at a school. The sporting curriculum has just gone down from 2 hours to 1 hour in a week, because they're more bothered about getting the A, B's and C's. So sport in general in the UK isn't as paramount as it is in places like America, where they celebrate it, where you can become a real superhero. So there's a lot of challenges, mate, and how Rugby League, taps into which strengths, I'm not quite sure, but I'll give you a lot to digest there.
Just to surmise, I think on the playing side of things, the game needs to be reckless. It's a reckless game anyway. And I think we've got some lawyers in the room. I think a lot of the drive from the centre is out of fear of litigation, if we're true. And so that has to be taken into consideration. But Formula 1 is dangerous, and it keeps going on. So whether you want to sign players to sign, and I don't buy into the fact on the role model side of things about players and the violence on the game transfers to the crowd. I think people are excited, and when we were in our peak at Leeds and we were playing Leeds with 27,000 people at Odsall, the people standing up with the women and kids going, kill, kill, kill. So the game, which was Alex's original question, we have to determine ourselves where the game's to and what it looks like in 2021 and who wants to buy it. We've mentioned Sky have been a magnificent sponsor from 1996 onwards. But the platforms you're talking about, Amazon, Netflix, the whole world's changing in relation to where you can watch things and where you can see things. And so if we can get our sport ready and it's attractive in the way that it looks structurally, and people call me a dreamer. You talked about a dreamer. If there's two teams from North America, and I'll pick up on something as well, don't call Canadians Americans. They go a bit...
Yeah. Simo keeps saying North America.
That's the whole thing. It is North America, but it's Canada and the USA.
They
kind of look at you with daggers. Anyway, no worries. I do it all the time. I have to buy a lot of beers out there. And so with two teams in London, genuinely, two teams in France, a team in Newcastle, maybe a team in Cumbria, all the heartland clubs, maybe have two conferences. I think we have to look at it completely different. And then have a playoff when the Wiggins, and you still get your local derbies, you still get your community clubs, Castleford, that are successful. I think positive self-determination for most of the clubs is where we've got to look at and drive the revenues as well. Being solely reliant on that, and then everybody keeping their fingers crossed by 2021 won't get us a deal that we want. So we got to make our game more attractive. All the things we've said. Yeah. If you boxed what he's got and what he's got, and certainly what he's got, and you threw it out there in any description, in any audience, in any room, you're going to have success. And I think we've been frightened to death to just eulogise what we've got and be passionate about what we've got. Because I've witnessed a new audience, and when 1996 came, when Sky bought the rights to Super League, it was the most exciting place to be, was Rugby League. Without a shadow of a doubt, it was the sport to be part of, wherever you were from. And I think we have some opportunities and some potentials that if we don't take, then we might be disappointed in 2021.
Fantastic. I want to tell you a real quick true story, real quick. Bob like Jones's stories. As part of Rugby AM, we have to do everything. We have to write the theme tune, sing the theme tune. We do it all. And I've been trying to get his sponsor up at line for a while. And I thought, you know what, I'll take him to a game. Took him along to Fev, drove him to Fev, all the way to Featherstone. I'm like, yeah, big opportunity, Rugby AM's going to grow. This was before we were on national TV, so I was selling a dream. Now I'm selling a reality. We've got the figures to back it up. But I'll never forget, as I pulled round Post Office Road, true story, and I'd sold this guy the full vision, the dream, and they ended up actually being our title sponsor, it's Spec. As we drove round the corner of Post Office Road, there were a guy walking a ferret. I swear on my kid's life, a grown man walking a ferret on a lead. And I went, there's still loads of room to improve around here. That's a true story. I wanted to talk about expansion because Toronto, Catalan, Toulouse, you do get a lot of clubs, heartland clubs, your Batleys and various other clubs. Batley, a fantastic club, I'm just using them as an example of an older heartland club, who sometimes the fans moan about expansion clubs, but I think we need to, in order to grow the game, we need to be global for a start. I think that the international game's got to grow, and also got to, rather than letting the tail wag the dog, the RFL or Super League, whoever it may be, have got to have a strategy for growth, looking at Toronto as a clear example of how it can work, not let people with loads of money like Marwan and Derek Beaumont walk away from the sport, help keep those lunatics in the
asylum.
In the asylum. Not lunatics, but they're passionate. But it's like you've got to stroke their ego, and you've got to look after them, and you've got to listen to them. I think most of the time they're just not getting listened to, and they're not getting that real support they need. But we can't afford to lose people like that with that kind of money who are passionate for the sport. But where would you guys see expansion territories? Give me a few sensible opportunities that you might have thought of that we should be looked at. 'Cause I know Dublin's being thrown up this week for next year.
I would chuck Dublin in because
You're Irish, aren't you?
I come from Irish stock, mate, yeah. I come
Yeah,
from
free
Irish
Guinness,
stock.
don't you?
When Jonesy was talking about gladiatorial spirit, my ancestors were stood on a hill in Ireland, buck naked, with lime in the hair and pointing the beard, naked, fighting the English. So I know all about fighting a losing cause, don't worry about that. But what I would like to see is Dublin, because they've got that in their blood. They like the toil and the tussle, like the North Americans, like the Americans. They enjoy that contact and collision. But you mentioned Cumbria. I would love to see us capitalise on the passion for rugby league. Now, I don't include the professional teams in that, because sometimes, some weekends, there will be more spectators watching two amateur teams, and I won't name professional or amateur teams for fear of missing anybody out, but there would be 1,500, 2,000 watching an amateur game because they feel that they've got more connection to that than joining in with a professional club. The argument with Cumbria is, where do you put it? Where's your location? What do you call it? Do you cancel off the 3 professional clubs and just have that as the centre? There's a lot of work to be done, but I think it's criminal that we haven't at least began the discussions and looked to put that plan in place.
But the greatest example of that is UTC and Tres Catalans, who came together to form Catalan Dragons. And if the Cumbrian teams could get their head around it, and I've been to Workington 3 weeks ago, and Leon Price, your old player, is doing a fantastic job there. And there were 1,800 people there, the biggest crowd at season. And Whitehaven looked like the days could be numbered, unfortunately. But surely
that's always like that, isn't it?
There should be someone like yourself who's hard enough to go and fight Cumbrians, because I'm certainly not. But someone to get up there and really make a point.
I don't want to chip my teeth now.
The reason why they joined UTC is because of Catalans. Yeah. They had an identity, they had a geographic region. So whilst they had that massive rivalry, they had this big region.
Could you see Cumbria coming together?
It's got to be Cumbria, hasn't it? Yeah. It's got to be a Cumbrian side, and that's the label, and it encompasses all the Cumbrian teams. And do you know what? John Milkin made a really interesting point in one of his podcasts. He said, as the top end of the game, the big clubs spent too much time pulling them or holding themselves back to try and let the other ones catch up at the expense of the game in general.
I agree.
And at some point, you've just got to say, if Whitehaven, as much as I love them, right, and I've been up there as with Stanley as a player, and I love Cumbrians and what they bring to Rugby League, but if they just can't have that humility to come together and think about going forward, he's talking about change there, Brian. You've got to change, and it's got to be in some form of Cumbrian side. Just to emphasise that point, everybody thinks NRL's massive. What I was really surprised about when I went to Australia, it isn't as big as what you think it is when you talk to average, normal Australians, right? Just know as a sport. No, listen, Melbourne's the most successful team at the minute in NRL. When you go to Melbourne, there's 20,000 there.
That's a Victoria thing,
No. Go to Melbourne, there's 20,000.
Yeah.
You go to some of the Aussie Rules games, there's 80,000 there, right? They're absolutely mad. And I know it's a regional thing, which I emphasise my point to a degree, but the State of Origin is the most watched programme on Australian television in everything that gets broadcast, which goes to show that people must be rooted in either whether you're from New South Wales or Queensland, right? Now, for me, you know, everybody's mad Game of Thrones fans, which is just a rip-off at War at Roses. It is just a rip-off of it. The Lannisters,
not everybody, Joe.
It is.
Not everybody.
It is. If you understand the story at War at Roses, right through Midlands down south, you know the majority of the House Lancaster actually controlled Yorkshire. So it wasn't a geographic thing. But we've got that story. We've got Yorkshire Lancashire, and we don't have that identity anyway. The Cumbrians need to get rooted in Cumbria and create that team.
Right. So we've had the territories.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. You haven't asked me a territory.
It's going to be a long one, this, isn't it?
No, Newcastle.
What do you reckon? Newcastle, do you think? Not Philadelphia's. David Argyle told me Philadelphia. Well, he said that'll be the one for him.
I think there are a number of people with good business people, and there'll be a number of options. Yeah. Now, my point I'm going to make is the people that make the decisions as to how a Cumbria happens or how a Newcastle happens and how your structure look are sat up at Red Hall or in Salford now. Yeah. And so when people talk about Eddie Hearn running the game or his who's the other? Barry Hearn running the game, or I could throw a real hand grenade in here. Maurice Lindsay running the game when he ran the game. Maurice is back. We need some decisions, and we need some direction, and we need some answers from everybody. Is Robert Elston going to have power over the whole game? Because it has to be for the good of the game as well. We're talking about the amateur game right the way. Who's going to build something where a kid can start as a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old at Stanley or up in Wharfbrow or down in London? London has a magnificent junior setup at the moment, and they've got a career pathway right the way through without any inhibitions into what they consider to be the pinnacle, either international professional rugby league or amateur rugby league or moving on anywhere. And if it looks like Newcastle and it looks like Cumbria, so you've got a northwest versus a northeast clash, and it looks like some of our heartland places. I've not once not talked about the community game because I'm a massive fan of it. So many success stories, and you've got a Hull, and all of a sudden you might think about 2 teams in London and not one. Who on earth would try and build a game without a presence in the capital? And I know the dynamics of London is more difficult than the north. It takes you 4 hours to get from one side to the other. And if you're an Arsenal fan, you never, ever speak about Tottenham or Chelsea. So maybe the branding there, it has to be a little bit better. But who is going to put that plan together? And you're absolutely bang on. Who's going to build the development? So we've played games on the road at lots and lots of cities. Newcastle, last year, we played the Millennium Magic? Not Millennium Magic. Magic Weekend. Do we support Newcastle, who are in the League One, enough and give them enough development and enough support to have their vision of a Super League team, which it is, visualised and realised? I'm not sure that we do. I think we've got a great launch it and leave it campaign, and some of the franchise.
They do put that, because I know Andy Kelly's a great friend of mine. He was there a few years ago. Just this week, I think the government, and now Phil Kaplan, you'll correct me because I'm always a bit sketchy on details, has just given the RFL £10 million for participation. With a view to the World Cup, exactly. So my vision for that money would be put people in schools, because that 10-year plan, that pyramid that you have to build to get the great players out the top, doesn't necessarily have to have that top player as your focus. The product at the bottom is just as important as the cream at the top. So more players in schools at year 7 playing rugby league. That would be, for 10 years' time, us to have a bigger pool of players to pick from, internationally, domestically, Super League, whatever you want to class it as. But it has to start with those younger players. Then those good players with good attributes, agility, skill, bravery, courage, all the things you need in our sport, then they get signposted to amateur clubs. Then amateur clubs have an overload of players, which then will sprout off more amateur clubs. Now, Leeds is lucky, 20 plus, I think it's 26 clubs in the city that play rugby league. In Oldham, there's 4. Now, I know there's a difference in size, but Oldham has churned out some amazing rugby league players. None of them sat here talking to you, by the way, but some amazing talent has come from that town, despite the fact that amateur clubs in the town will do more for the sport of rugby league than the professional entity. That's not with a dig at Oldham Rugby League. I just believe year 7, year 8 is where all that money should be ploughed, and it shouldn't be left to a teacher who loves rugby league to say, I'll take training after school. It should be in the curriculum, it should be in the schools, but it also should be delivered by specialist coaches who go around the schools on 6 or 8 week programmes, and they spend some quality time identifying talent.
Right, one question I want to ask you all, last one. I'm going to get into some quick fire stuff, then over to the audience, so please let's start thinking about any questions you'd like to ask any of these guys this evening. When the split happened between the RFL and Super League knew they needed somebody who they could trust, and his name came up then, Robert Elston. He was the CEO of Everton Football Club, and apparently he's taken a sizable drop in salary because he's that passionate about the game. Castleford fan, a great operator, loads of experience, a real top-end performer in a sporting environment. He's coming, he's now the CEO of Super League, and he's going to take the game forward. But 2 questions, and I'm going to ask for you both an answer each. The first one is, what's Robert Elston's first priority that he needs to get right? And the second question is, why should a business invest in rugby league? So I'll give you a minute just to think about it.
Well, the answer to the second question is the answer to the first question. So more money is needed. More money needs to be available, which will then increase salary cap and all the rest of it. But the reason businesses should get involved in rugby league is the integrity of the game. The integrity of the people within it is first class.
Yeah.
We are what we say we are. We're not allowed to tell lies. Fundamentally, within the changing rooms, within the corporate rooms and the hospitality that you might go and visit, within the terraces, you can't afford to tell lies because people will call you out. It's a very honest environment. So the beauty of being involved in rugby league as a business is you'll be able to watch a game, you'll be able to admire the players within it, you'll watch them chip their teeth, burst their nose, burst their lips, dislocate the joints, tear tendons and ligaments off the bones, and then an hour later they'll be in your room, they'll be in your box, they'll be in your corporate facility shaking your hand and thanking you for coming to the game.
I agree with that totally. There's many a time I do the long bar at Leeds after the game, and it's been a tough year this year, a tough year in 2016, and the guys come up and the front up every single time to sponsors to go in there, and I look at Jonesy sometimes and I know he just don't want to speak to anyone, but he'll still shake everyone's hand, have photos with kids.
They don't want to shake his hand, he just...
You never shake my hand.
So what's
you're from Bradford,
what's Robert Elston's first priority then, boss?
He's got to get more money into the game by hook or by crook, and you've already mentioned the major contributors who I work for, but that's it.
Yeah.
74% of the game's income comes from one person. There has to be more companies. My colleague Phil, who I'm with, we were looking at how much Barclays put in to the Premiership. Did we say that were 40 million a year? Gallagher's, who are a company who we work with Apex, they put 5 million per year into rugby union. I would be embarrassed to chuck out the figures that get put into our game if it's not from Sky. So it's more money.
Brian, Robert's first priority, in your opinion, in his new role?
He's got so many.
What's the first one? Or you can give us a couple of main ones that you think that he needs to sort out.
Can I do the values one thing first?
Yeah, first
if you're
one.
a business, honesty and integrity, originality, authenticity. What values does your business stand for? Because there's a lot of bullshit out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
About what looks nice and what isn't nice, and the things that Barry said and the things that I'm confident JJB will reinforce is that if you want your values to reflect those values, then it's a no-brainer. If you want clients that you want to come and be entertained, you'll get entertained and they'll have a good evening and they'll enjoy it. And the byproduct of that is you see them poor broken people that's done it on the field come in there and thank you for coming to watch them getting broken and respect the fact that you're contributing to what they do. Pick up on the London thing. I think, I'm not speaking out of school here, but London Scholars play Wigan at the start of every season. It funds their season because the corporates that go to that one game, I don't know what the numbers are, and I could be way off the pace.
About 400. Royal Artillery.
Something like in that little space in London. They're playing a little Royal Artillery courtyard, and I think they make something like 300 or 400 grand. So that's the difference in fine. And I'm thinking, and we don't want to be in London. What is wrong with us? Yeah. So that's just a different side. So I'll make the point. The values for me, there is no other sport in the world, and there's loads of bullshit out there that they say on television. Premier League is this, Premier League. Who would ever want a Premier League football? And there's some fantastic ones. Please don't think that the 5% that roll around there and behave poorly is a reflection of footballers. It's not. They're great people. It's not their fault that they get played squillions in relation to what they do. That's the value of the market. I just want to increase our market so that we can all benefit. And a kid that does what he's done for 15 years and what did he was at 10 doesn't have to go on, maybe have to work again and think about another career. With the fact that they've put their bodies on the line for 10 years, they can actually sit down and relax and maybe do a little bit something else that they want to do. So that's my little rubber stamp there. Robert Elston, God, it's such a loaded question. What's his first priority? Amongst looking at the rules to make our game, the vital issue of whether we're going to sanitise our game to the point that it's not entertaining, which is a real risk.
Yeah.
That's a real risk.
Yep.
Do we go down the reckless route? He has got to get the lawmakers to look at the rules of our game and look at the state of our game. So what makes this such a special event and what makes this so attractive that we're going to have people actually knocking on our door as well as selling it. So make sure the product is still number one, because if we lose the product in everything that's gone on, you know, we are a gloom and despondency merchants at sometimes, and we get caught in our M62 corridor. And then he's got to, you're right, he has to bring money in. That's easier said than done. How would we do that? And I go back to what I've said before, how do we make, because we've always been innovative in Rugby League, we've had to survive at times. We've always been innovative. We've got to find something that reboots the game. I'd relaunch it, I'd call it the Premier Rugby League or something, and make it a different structure with different exciting formats and things. Of course, yeah, let's do it. We're changing it in a year when it's been the most exciting qualifiers there's ever been. So I'm in Canada explaining this to people that don't understand the washing machine that is the qualifiers, because I don't understand. It's like, remember we had the fives. Do you ever understand the fives in Super League?
No.
5 plays 3 and 2 plays 5. Couldn't understand it. And then we come up with a formula where in the qualifier, wow, has it been exciting this time around on the 4th year? And what do we tell the Canadians? Yeah, we've got this unbelievable format, 6 people and 2 people, and there's only 2 points left in it, and we're scrapping it next year. So we have to have a little bit of consistency from Robert. We have to have a little bit of, this is the way, I think it needs direction. This is what we're doing in Super League. What's going to be different is probably a question I'll throw back at you. What is going to be different? What does Robert have to do that's different to have that kind of impact?
I think the first thing he's going to do is get a vision, get the right vision that everyone can buy into the game overall. Jonesy, what do you think?
If you're going to have a vision, the key word there is buy into. You've got to get everybody to buy into it. So you've got to unite everybody to start with, get everybody pushing in the same direction, which we're all trying to do, toe the party line, particularly from where Rugby AM's point of view comes from. It's interesting though, I will mention, I think they've both nailed it there from a wider holistic game point of view, but I've, as a player, I've never really been asked or consulted. And it's only just occurred to me the last few weeks, wouldn't it be nice if we had that voice, that players' union? You keep talking about Rugby League and the assets. The assets are the players, they're the biggest assets. They're the people that have got out onto the pitch, who've got to produce the products that you see on television. Like my mate, Brett Delaney, who gone out there a few weeks ago into a tackle, putting his body on line, smashed his cheekbone to bits, big fracture. And the pursuing couple of days, it swelled up and his eyeball nearly come out of his head. You know, these boys are literally putting their bodies and souls, and when your eyes start falling out of your head, it's harsh. It's pretty big, isn't it?
Heads are falling off.
Yeah. Eyes falling out, walking around holding your eyeball. So I don't know, in NRL, you know, taking Australia as a model, there is a players' union, and the players have got quite a big say, and that contributed quite a lot to the sort of the growth of the game as well, because when players feel like they've got ownership, they'll go out there and they'll buy into it. And just lastly, anything that players do, when it comes to whether it be social media, whether it be video, it's got to be quality. We've got to make them superheroes. Yeah. So somebody like Tommy Briscoe, and he's just somebody who's close to my heart because I play with him. He scored 5 tries at Wembley, and you know, you go down south, nobody's got a clue who Tommy Briscoe is. Everybody knows who Martin Afire was, but he's got the record for most tries in the most prestigious game in Rugby League. But you go out here and nobody knows who Tommy Briscoe is. And just to add to that, this lad who's grown up in Featherstone with flat cap, these little parochial guys apparently, his brother's got the record for most consecutive tries in Rugby League. Who knows about that? Who's making the story where what do you do? You're the hardcore. But you know, where are the casual fans, the people who don't really go to matches but have heard of Tommy and Luke Briscoe because of what they've achieved? We've got to put players at the forefront, ask them what they want and try and make them as big a stars as they can be.
I was going to go into some quick fire questions with these guys, and before I do, I'm just going to tell you another quick story about Sean Long. So Sean Long is a legend of our game, and he's been on Twitter for years, and he used to be Sean Long MBE, and I once said to him, we'd been having a beer end of one season, Long, what would I like to meet the Queen? He went, do you mean? I says, well, you got your own beer? He went, no, I've got one big eye. And he put it on Twitter and I believed him. But, right, just real quick answers, guys, please. What's the most hated ground you ever went to, and which did you hate going to as a player?
Well, actually, I was there at weekend. Halifax. Thrum All, I never won as an Oldham player a Wigan player or a Leeds player, I always come away on the losing side, so I was relieved to wave goodbye to Thrum Hall.
Brian?
The old Norton Park at Widnes as a player, it was depressing. It was painted black for a reason. They had an unbelievable team that played in black and white. The toilets were outside, so you had to go to the fans to go to the toilets as a player to go back into the stadium. They had a psychopath called John Woods, a fullback, who beat me up in the toilets before the game. I never liked going to Norton Park at Widnes.
Jonesy?
This will upset a few people, not least Nobby, but as probably symptomatic of my age, but the 3G pitches kill me. Absolutely ruin me, my knees and the rest of it. And I've always struggled on the 3Gs. I don't like them, I'll be honest with you. The grounds, the old school grounds, and you go to places like Cass, the old Knowsley Road, Boulevard, whatever, absolutely love it. I love it. You know, the atmosphere, the heritage and the history behind it. And you go to places like Knowsley Road, remember there's spiders all over the walls and all sorts, mate. It can be rough as, but that's Rugby League. And I loved it. But and I like the new modern stadiums, but I don't like the 3G pitches, I'll be honest.
Toughest player you played with and against?
With and against, I'll say the same person because it's his anniversary today. Unfortunately, Terry Newton took his own life 8 years ago today.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was the toughest player I played with or against, and he had the devil in him, that lad. He would pinch bollocks, he would put fingers where they shouldn't go, he would grab the backs of arms, nipping and stuff, but yeah, I loved him to bits, so same player, Tez Newton.
No way.
A fella called Carl Fairbank, who was a farmer from Elland, of famous 5 professional players, and Carl played with us at Bradford.
Is his dad play as well?
Jack played for Leeds, yeah.
There's a great video of him on Jacob's Instagram going, I'd fucking give him one of them.
Carl Fairbank, without a doubt, the hardest. Against, I once picked a fight with Kevin Tamati, who was playing for Widnes. And he must have hit me 50 times before I lifted my first hand and knocked senseless. And the story is, they played in those V-neck shirts came in and were popular, Adidas ones, and they were quite baggy at the top. And I actually said before the game to a long-time friend of mine, David Hobbs, I'll sort this Kevin Tamati out. And he looked at me. I didn't realise. Somebody told me he was a professional boxer. And everybody in the change rooms were going, really? Yeah, I'll sort him out. Don't you worry about that. So I went into a tackle. And he bust my nose, and I thought, right, next one. And Billy Thompson was the referee. Well, they won't remember, but referees had amazing characters then.
Yeah.
Just before your era, JJB. And Billy Thompson, I saw that young and I saw that, and you can have one. So I thought, oh, fair play. So I've flown in and whacked Kevin Tamati, nothing's happening. And Billy Thompson stood there giving a penalty. I thought it's not in front of all these people. So I'm a referee. So that carried on. But then what we had then, if you'll remember, and this is what we need to bring back into the game, is that the 2 villains, I was a villain, I'd just hit. So Tamati, he's carrying the ball from the next tap because it's a penalty. And everybody's looking at me, obviously saying, here's your chance now, the big man's coming on the rampage. And I'm thinking, yeah, fair play. I think, and all the crowd knew that as well. There's that collision, that Colosseum type of atmosphere, and it was all going off. And I thought, right, he's having it. And I can only remember because I watched the video, and I've still got the video at home. And I go to come in, I give him one, I go to hit him, and he hits me harder than a bit, because I was knocked out after the first punch. But I got my arm caught in his shirt, like this, in his running shirt.
Punch bag.
I literally couldn't go to ground, and everybody's watched this. I was knocked out, I promise you, at the first punch. And I got a reputation for being such a hard man, because he hit me 50 times, and it was just a penalty. And I came up at the other side, my face like a blood orange, bleeding everywhere. And I walked past David Hobbs and says, all right, that showed him. I had this big reputation, but I was knocked out and caught in his shirt. Kevin Tamati.
Jonesy.
Outstanding. Toughest player?
Yeah.
It'd have to be Jamie Peacock, I think. Physically, Baz would be right up there. One of the most powerful blokes ever. Biggest back in the world with all that power and backsides as well. But Jamie Peacock, for me, was the most...
And what? Backsides?
Backside. Power, the rump.
You need a big hammer for a big nail, George.
Jamie Peacock was the most resilient player I've ever played with. I always describe him as being like Monty Python's Dark Knight. You can chop his arms, legs off, and he'll still carry on fighting and carrying that ball forward. Never ever relents. And he won us more trophies than anybody will ever know.
What about playing against?
Sonny Bill Williams, I think. Played against him in 2005 at Ellen Road when he was playing for Bulldogs, and we'd won our first grand final in 04. Baz, you played in that. And we went up, I think it was about 24-6 at half time, and we were smashing them. And they got away like a steam train up second half, and they were just scoring point after point. And if it had gone 5 more minutes, they'd have beat us. I remember I was blowing out my backside, and Baz gave away a penalty on our line for playing ball.
It's unusual, isn't it?
And it was a ridiculous play of the ball. And about 2 sets later, he did another play of the ball.
I don't remember that, Jones. I think you're
even
telling
more
lies
outrageous. And I'm looking at ref like that, and the referee just not seeing it. But we hung on. I remember a guy called Marcus Bai, who was a Papua New Guinean. He was like this. That's plasterboard, something else. It was hard like rock, honestly, granite. And he carried the ball, Sonny Bill smashed him, put him on his back. Nobody ever does that. Then that pantomime bad guy, Ryan Bailey, that Brian spoke about earlier, he took a carry, got absolutely ended by Sonny Bill. And that was when you could have a shoulder charge. And this is entertaining. You know, the whole crowd stood up, not to Marcus and Bailey, obviously. But then I went and kept shape on a bit of an edge. I thought, centre's looking a bit light here. But yeah, he's really tough guy.
Right, greatest leader you've worked with?
Kevin, although I would put Andy Farrell in there as well. I thought both very different. Andy Farrell was, I think, a very tall man, very physical presence, but he had an aura about him, Faz, and you knew that he trained harder. He wasn't particularly tough, but he'd go right toe to toe with anybody. And I thought Andy Farrell was an immense leader, but I would give it Kevin Sinfield purely because having known him from a 13-year-old, and I'm sure we all know people who have expectation and sometimes that expectation burdens them. Well, at 13, people told me that Kevin Sinfield was going to be the next captain of his country, and obviously knowing him as I do now, he embraced that, he accepted that challenge, and that drove him every minute of every day to work towards that. Then once he got that goal achieved, pass on and keep going and keep knocking off the accolades. So I respect and admire what he's doing now. I know he's hurting like everybody is at Leeds, and he's disappointed and feels disappointment for everyone in terms of what Leeds have ended up.
Go on, Buzz. Sorry.
Yeah. I want to say this properly because I want to be respectful, Jonesy. They've got the job done. But for me, they're a bottom 4 side, and if Leeds Rhinos are a bottom 4 side in any season, then everybody's got to sit up and everybody's got to take note because it's not good enough.
Nobby, greatest leader you've worked with?
I'm lucky on the coaching front. I worked under Jack Gibson at Cronulla for 2 years, and I learnt he was a great leader. Peter Fox, one of my first coaches from Featherstone, he just taught you the art of never being wrong. Even when you were wrong, he just had this brilliant knack of coming up with the right answer. On the field, JP has definitely dragged the team through lots. But I'll pick up on you. So I thought Andy Farrell was a magnificent leader. I was assistant coach with Great Britain when Waity was coaching it, just before he went to Rugby Union. Paul Sculthorpe too. I think he deserves a mention. Scully has that ability to transform people around him and lead them through some difficult times. And I think that's what you want in a leader. Sometimes people talk about the oration and the words, and I tell you what, when you're in the middle of this game, sometimes it's your actions that do that. So anybody that's got the actions and can actually articulate the fact that why they're doing it, which some of the people we've spoken about there, is outstanding.
Jonesy?
Kevin Sinfield, without a doubt, he's the greatest leader of all time. He's the oracle, the chosen one.
You want a new contract, don't you?
Yeah. Do you know what Baz mentioned there? Leeds been in bottom 4. We've been in bottom 4 for 2 of the 3 years that he hasn't been a part of the team. And you know, any transition in coach we've had over that last golden generation, last 15, 20 years, has never been as disruptive as it was losing Kev and JP. And anybody who's seen that film, As Good As It Gets, we brought out this year, I described them both as being like, I think we're all either a prophet, a priest or a king. JP was like the king, the guy who leads from the front, leads by example. Nobody just said that. But Kev was the priestly guy in that he's very ritualistic. He's got mad OCD, mad weirdo. He like stirs his tea 36 times. Every 3, you'll have to turn cameras off because we'll go balmy. But every 3 lampposts he'll tap steering wheel, and if he'd have to be sat in the middle, symmetrically dividing this crowd here, if he was in this room, he's like that. But that made him the most organised, competent human being I've ever come across. And the fact that he come runner-up in 2015 at the BBC Sports Personality year. If he'd been there year before or any year since, he'd have won it on the votes that he got. Yeah. And there's only Kev Sinfield that could transcend that sort of player bias that exists within Rugby League and achieve that sort of accolade. But yeah, without a doubt, love JP. He'd be the guy who would stand the hairs on the back of your neck before you went out to play.
Right, one more question, and it's a bit of a funny one. And you've got to be really honest with us. Who's the worst roommate you've ever had? On an away day or a tour? Number one worst roommate?
I don't think we ever shared a room, did we, Jonesy?
I remember, Bob.
I can imagine you being a snorer without bugle, but I'm one of them. I need to get to sleep. Once I'm asleep, I'm dead to the world, but it takes me ages to watch those cogs just gradually slow down and stop. And Paul Wood, who you lads know really well, I think he's got narcolepsy. He falls asleep every minute that he's not speaking and snores. So I put Woody in my 3. I'm going to have 3, and they've all got the same affliction. Carl Harrison.
Carl, yeah. Rhino.
Another one that snores like a rhino. Yeah. And Anthony Farrell. Anybody that remembers the Rhinos back in the 90s, we had Darren Fleary, Anthony Farrell, 2 granite hard lads, but Anthony Farrell not only snored with his broken nose, but he must have smoked 20 cigarettes out the window, blowing it out that actually blew it back in. So I've got 3.
3. Have
Carl Fairbank, because a world-class snorer, and he got up at, wherever in the world we were. He got up at 3:30 because he was going to milk the cows at 3:30. No, you're not, Carl. Go back to bed. You're not on the farm. No, I'm going to get up. Jack will be complaining. You're in New Zealand, you dick. Go back to bed. So Carl Fairbank. Martin's a shocker. He snores like nothing else. Don't go anywhere near him. So those 2 probably up there.
Jonesy?
First one to spring to mind was a player called Richie Moore. Richard Moore played a bit at Leeds, played at Bradford. You'll know Richard at Featherstone more recently. And we went to Fiji in 2002. And he wasn't well. He fell a bit ill, so he was in bed for quite a bit.
He's not well, full stop.
He's not well. He's a very strange human being. Nice guy. Just got him into fishing as well. He loves it. And I left him because I was going for my dinner. I said, right, I won't be long. Do you want... Oh, no, I'll be about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Comes back in the room, opens the door. There's mattress in front of the door. One of the beds is on its side. Television's on the chair. There's flipping stuff. Absolutely smashed this room to bits. I said, what on earth are you doing? What's going on? He says, there's 2 lizards in here and I can't find them anywhere. And so they must have come through window and he was terrified of these lizards and he smashed the place to pieces trying to find it. So, but other than that, mate, been pretty good. I'm not a fussy person, but...
So that means you're the person that everyone don't like sleeping.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't put me up there. We toured together last year, didn't we, for the World Cup? Right, anyone got any questions for our 3? Are you... Oh, brilliant. Awesome, Chloe, thank you.
Is this Who Are You?
Yeah.
Are you going to ask who I am again, Chloe? I'm up there.
If anyone would like to ask questions, stick your hand up and they'll be totally honest.
Ish.
Any questions? Oh, there you go. 2.
One for Brian, really, then, from the Toronto on the ground, and Barry was on about trying to get more kids over here playing rugby. How are you guys going about it over there?
It's a great question. People talk about development, and when we have one Canadian in the squad, Quinn Nawati, that we picked up from some trials. I'm a big believer in the Melbourne plan. Melbourne didn't get a Melbourneian through to their team for 22 years, and they've won how many grand finals? They had a couple taken off them. I think you have to build a little bit of success first of something that people want to watch. Yeah. Get some superstars out there playing with rugby ball. One of our 3 mantras is rugby balls in kids' hands. We're doing 100,000 kids next year in relation to rugby coaching, along with Rugby Ontario, which is the rugby union side of Canada. We don't care. It's all rugby over there. They don't differentiate too much as they do in this country. So that's part and parcel of the plans moving forward, because we've had an element of success. It's hugely important to us because I'd love to live 4 or 5 or 6 teams where all the kids in colleges and things have an option to play rugby, whatever form, or Rugby League particularly, because we are the showpiece rugby show in town. And we do have a lot of kids. And from my original statement when I was talking about kids want to be like JJB and wanting to be big kids want him to be like Barrie when he played for Leeds, and the superstars that we need in our game, we need them to be able to aspire to that. So it's a great question, and it's something that's particularly on our agenda for next year.
This gentleman down there.
What would you do to sort out the Challenge Cup?
Great question.
It's a fabulous question. I'd move it back to its original pre-season slot. I think there are a number of challenges for the Challenge Cup. We're playing the final on a time when everybody's away on holiday for starters, which doesn't help. My personal experience in Rugby League started with a school trip when I was 9 from my middle school at Drummond Road in Bradford. Went down to this thing called the Challenge Cup. I didn't know anything about Rugby League at 9, 10-year-old. Came back and did. And it was a full stadium. And I think trips like that in school time is a way of developing the game. I think we've got to keep the interest week in, week out. That's why it should be where it used to be. Do you know what I'm saying? So, because we've got a crazy situation now.
You put it to May, Nobby?
Yeah,
that
we'll
was
put it to May, the original final. But what that means, it becomes a pre-season competition. An early season competition, not pre-season, and you can get 2 or 3 rounds on the bounce and actually know what's happening in it. And I think that's what there's. We made points about Martin Afire and national TV coverage. This isn't a criticism of Sky. I think you find it's happening in cricket and all the sports at the corner. Only people that are interested in it put the slots in the view. And so what you get with the BBC is the possibility, I'm only ever say that, of a national audience. And if we can create stars then, and on a national audience, then the Briscoes will be household names because we'll force feed them the facts and things like that. We have to, with the new TV deal, my thoughts, if it's not Amazon or Netflix, there's at least got to be some terrestrial presence. And what I mean by that is free-to-air, what they're calling in North America free-to-air, BBC basically, on BBC Two. I mean, what we see is other sports paying for that privilege. You know, I think Rugby Union pay for their show on Channel 4 or 5 out there. They have a highlight show. We should have a highlight show on the BBC, and then they'd know our stars. And so, yeah, the only way for it to be successful now for me, bearing in mind all the travel that we ask our fans to do, if Warrington now get to the grand final, that's quite a bit of expenditure for them in relation to a big day out. Everybody wants to go to events now, don't they? You're talking about sport, they want an event, don't they? And what we're good at is providing events. What Canada is good at is providing an event for people to go to. And I think so many in such a short period of time at the end is difficult.
I don't think, as well, I was going to chip in there, you can't have the Challenge Cup final so close to grand final because you just don't have enough time, especially between the semi-final and final, to sell it. It's just crazy. So I think if you get it back to May and put your Magic Weekend into June or July, and then every team's going to Magic Weekend. You've got the fan base going. When you've got 2 teams going to the final, then making the first big day out of the year. Let's all go to London in May. You made a great point, and the first person to tell me about it was Gary Everington, talking about the school trips and stuff. And great idea. I'd love it if my kid wanted to go down to London with his school and with his friends and see the city. There's so many northern kids who've never been to London. It's such a magical place for a kid at that age, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, to walk out to Wembley. And you know what it's like when you're a kid, everything's bigger. So it's just like unbelievable, and I think that's really important for our game.
Points him out. Harry Jepson, the late great Harry Jepson used to tell some great stories about Scully, John Holmes, and taking them down to Wembley, and that's what inspired them. But they were in days when you could take 30 kids down to Wembley and come back with 28 and nobody be bothered. But like I've suggested this plenty of times to the local schools. We'll get you down to Wembley. The safeguarding and the risk assessment, like, not bothered. Just too much of a bollock. So completely agree with you. But there's a lot of people to persuade to make that happen.
World's gone mad. Anybody else? Any more questions? Please put your hands up. There you go.
Do you think Super League has a responsibility to develop the international game in places like Jamaica?
I think they're probably 2 different entities now, aren't they? The RFL will take care of the community game and the international game. Super League will then look after the premier teams that are within that particular competition. I'm one of them that doesn't believe, I'm of the opinion that an international victory will not solve all the issues within our game. It will give us a certain amount of credibility, and the the spreading out of big occasions within the year is a must. And I think probably when I asked you, would you put it to May? Because May was my experience. But I think as long as you keep it within term time, within school time for kids, it ticks all those boxes. But if we have a regular spread of events throughout the year, and Magic Weekend is one of them, we finish it with an international series, or we have a calendar at the end, we can aspire, and we've got regular intervals of excellence. And we've talked a lot about the top table for the domestic competitions being a place of excellence. The international game has to be a place of excellence. But I'm going to go right back to what I said right at the beginning. We have to fill out the stadiums. We as fans of the sport, fans of the game, we have to get out there, we have to support, we have to go to games, because otherwise we're sat at home complaining and picking holes in things without actually knowing that we're contributing to the demise of the game.
Anybody else?
Just on that International Super League and their responsibility should be to release players when they're called upon, because what we're seeing with the National Rugby League in Australia, they dictate terms, and they shouldn't. The pinnacle for any player aspiring to get to the top of any sport is to represent your country. I don't think there'll be any disaffection on the top table here. And I slightly disagree with Barry just on this point, is that an England win in a tournament would be huge for the game, because we haven't done anything for 50 odd years, particularly if it was against the Australians. To beat them, I think the column inches and the coverage that we would get would be huge. So I'm a big fan of the international game, as most people know. But I do think it would. I'm confident it would
help us for a short period of time, but unless there's anything underneath that to follow.
That's a different issue, isn't it?
We've won World Club challenges. We've beaten some domestically. We've beaten some teams that should be a headline. I'm not saying it won't help us. It will, but it won't solve all the issues.
No, I'm not suggesting it would. What I'm suggesting is it'd give you the platform if there was some follow-up in relation to what we were doing. But without an I was privileged to go to the World Cup this year, previously, and the best experience I think I've ever had, and Dave Wood says it the same, the England-Tonga game was one of the best games of rugby I've ever seen. The crowd control was basically, there's 30,000 Tongans there. And they're big people, the Tongans. And when it looked like it was kicking off, when a decision went against them, they played hymns. And so instant crowd control. Everybody started singing hymns, and everybody's going, wow. But the noise and the energy and the drama of that game and the drama of the World Cup. But you're right. What do we do to follow it up? We don't organise an international calendar that people can look at and be a part of in relation. We're kidding ourselves. We're not kidding ourselves. I understand your sentiments, but an international win and a successful England team, particularly, or Great Britain that's coming back, they're touring again next year. This is a huge part of the people that talk about heritage, tradition, and communities. The focus as a professional player every 4 years was to get on a Great Britain tour. Mm-hmm. And the aspirations for people to that. And do you know what? They were well supported. The original Barrie Army, if you don't know, was a Rugby League Barrie Army of about 8,000 or 9,000 that went down to Australia and followed them around. So we have challenges for the game in relation to everybody wants to see more of something. It might be a time for the brain boxes that say, actually, we'll have less domestic fixtures and more event fixtures, because people want to go to events.
We went to that Tonga game, didn't we? Yeah. Everybody thought Alex was King of Tonga.
Yeah.
You look like him.
Superhero.
I loved it. It was the greatest experience, sporting experience. Never mind. I've been to NFL games, been to Silverstone at ECB. I've been to loads of different things. Been pretty lucky to travel with sport, and that was you could not even describe the atmosphere. It was so special. And George Burgess wasn't picked, and this is a true story. He walked out of his house in Sydney, and he was going to the shop to buy some milk, and he just drove to the airport and jumped on a plane, and he was stood with me at pitch side, and the phone rang, and it was Joanna, his missus, instead of a baby, and she went, "What are you?" He went, "Oh, yeah, I'm in New Zealand. I just decided I needed to come and see boys play in case they get knocked out." So she's country girl, cool. Sound no worries. wish them all the best, da 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 da. And me and George, we sat in casino till 3-4 in the morning just talking, and we couldn't afterwards. You couldn't even describe how special an atmosphere that was. And my belief in business and in sport and in rugby league especially, we've got to go for the easy wins. We've got to identify what are the easiest wins, and that might be, getting Kevin Sinfield back to Leeds. Easy win. Gary Everington used his brain. Dave Ferner as a coach, easy win. He understands the ethos as a club. Getting these island nations playing more internationals, easy win. The people are hungry for it. Rugby league people want to support brands that support rugby league. We've seen it with First Utility and various different companies over the years getting involved because the people come together. And I'll tell you this story now, and to finish off, I've got another question over there. When Kevin Sinfield was nominated for Sports Personality of the Year, Jamie Jones phoned me on his bike, riding the bike home from training, because he's got a 40-year-old van that he will not sell, and we'll get a new one.
And he's tight.
No, he just loves it. He's passionate about this old VW. And he says, Simo, in his voice like that, I'm going to tell you something. Kev's been nominated. Don't tell anyone, but do you reckon if I wear a Wigan shirt, Wigan fans will vote for Kev Sinfield? Like, nah. What you need to do is we need to get every club and the captain wearing a Sinfield 13 top. And me and Jonesy and a friend of ours, Dave Birchall, over a week created a social campaign, and we reached over 1 million people organically. And Nigel Wood came into our office and says, if you hadn't done that campaign, he wouldn't have got as many votes. And we only played a tiny role in it. We got up on that Thursday morning, didn't we, at 6 a.m. at Headingley, and we made a show about Kev's career. And it went out on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday on Made in Leeds about his support. And it will have helped in a little way, but what really helped is Kev and what he meant to people, because I think that he was the one person that people could look past and identify with as a sport and back. And I think that's really important from a business perspective to, if I'm going to urge all you guys who've got businesses who want to dip your toe in the water, get behind a player. Find a player that you identify with, someone who you think you could support, and then work with them and see how they can help grow your business, because I think you'd be really pleasantly surprised, to be honest.
You get a player coming at the end of his career and give him a job, maybe.
Yeah.
The important thing about that campaign, just really quickly, was that I got in touch with every Super League club and asked them if they would print Sinfield 13 up back of their shirt, and every club, bar one, I won't mention who it is, did it and got behind it. And that just shows you the power of coming together. Everybody had an opportunity. One club didn't do it, but anyway.
Because they don't like Tompkins.
Last question, is it?
Yeah, last question, sir.
Yeah, if we're trying to grow the game, in my eyes, if you've got somebody at 20 years plus, they're not going to come and play rugby league or rugby union. I think it's lost by then. So it's so important to get the youth on side. And for me, the biggest change that's been over the last 30, 40, 20 years is that schools, and I take it around the Leeds area now, no schools are playing competitive sport.
Yeah,
none. So what you've got is, you've got the private schools who are paying £3,000 per teacher to take on extra curriculum sports to take the kids through to be productive. And that's what you've got. You've got maximising talent, so you've got the rugby union sort of feed going through. But in Leeds, the majority of schools in Leeds were playing rugby league. Now I would say, I can't think of maybe 2, 3, 4 that might be playing rugby league. So for me, the main drive is that, yeah, it's okay putting coaches into schools to try and get the rugby league and the rugby union going. But key to this is getting the teachers in every year getting paid to do what they're doing to bring on the kids and not wasting the opportunities.
My plan was taken away from
I heard
the
what
teachers,
you were saying.
Because the teachers have the things that they're responsible for, and in the days of safeguarding and the risk assessment, it might be beyond them. So the coaches that I would put the money into that would go around would do that, and therefore it wouldn't impact the teachers.
But these are kids that don't even know that they might be interested in rugby.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you know, how many people were you at school with that suddenly they were useless at everything, weren't they? And suddenly they went on a pitch and did something. And them aren't people that are going to go towards Them aren't people that are going to. So for me,
actually think we're vigorously agreeing with each other here. Only
for me, we're losing so much opportunity with the kids that are out there by just not nurturing.
One is about the kids in school, and however we put it across, and however we make kids play is absolutely spot on. The second thing he said is about players by 20. Unless they've made it, they're lost to the game. My son would be a good example of that. Had a couple of bad injuries, and it's only because his circle of friends are at my local amateur club that he's gradually got back in. Not everybody has that around. And I go back to something that Martin Offiah said to me after one of the Challenge Cup finals. He said, and it's a really interesting way of looking at it, people respect and admire rugby league players. Fathers respect and admire rugby league players, but they don't necessarily want the sons to be a rugby league player because it's difficult, it's tough. And I completely identify with that because of the experience that my own son has had. So we do need to make more places for people to play. The great advantage football, rugby union, to name but two sports have is you can play it at the elite level. And there's lots of different levels you can go down. I played a little bit of rugby union at the back end of my 30s and loved it because I could play against 40, 50, 60-year-old blokes. We all have the same mentality. We get on the field and get off the field without getting injured. And football might be the same with five-a-side and all these different variants that they can play. We don't really have those in rugby league because it's either 110 miles an hour or it's no, I'm too old, I can't play. So.
Yeah. It's probably younger than that. It's probably younger than that. If you've not played it by the time you're 14, 15, rugby league's not the sort of game you're going to take up because it means running into people, and by a lot of kids, it's just daft. It's just a daft thing to do. There are some exceptions. Mal Reel is a great example. Yeah. Played football until he was in his teens, and I think his football season finished. He was at Kippax Welfare. So his mate took him into rugby league changing rooms next door. He played 6 games for Kippax. Cass signed him. And then within 18 months, he'd went on Todd.
He missed the bus.
He missed
the bus to football, and the bus for rugby, they were short, and he went and played, and then he played 6 games.
And then,
Cass signed him, and I think it was 9 months later.
It wasn't that. A bit longer than that. But within, you get my point, within a short space of time, an older person went on and did some really good stuff. But just to, with Baz's point, I agree with Baz, but the problem, there ain't enough good coaches in the community game. Like, one of the big things we're looking at Leeds Rhinos is coach education. So, instead of people just flogging 8-year-olds, making them run up hills and that, thinking that's going to make them mentally tough and getting them away from these old stereotypes, put ball under the breadbasket and just run into the wall and giving them quality coaching. There ain't enough of that in rugby league, never mind getting them into every school. So what I found as well in high schools is what you've got, if you want a rugby league team in high school, you've got to get kids going from primary school in year 7 who are already playing it. So we need to get everybody investing in the primary schools so that when they go to, say, West Leeds Academy in Bramley, they get 4 kids from Milford and they've got 4 kids who play for Stanley. They'll form the spine of the team, and there'll be another 5 or 6 who come in and say, oh yeah, I'll play with my mate, and that's how they form the rugby team. If they don't get any community game players come in, they don't have a team, simple as that. And another thing as well, places like Cass High, Wembley all the time, because Cass is massive. There's loads of community clubs and probably 2 high schools, so they're constantly really good. So that's your evidence. You need to invest in the primary schools.
I'm just going to give you two success stories of that exact thing, exact point you made. Now, we've been really fortunate at Rugby AM, and the best thing about Rugby AM is the fact that we go out to all the different clubs, amateur clubs, professional clubs, and we do a lot of community stuff. So you learn a lot, and you listen to people who matter. And one of my biggest frustrations in the past with the RFL is you get people who've come out of university, got a job in rugby league, and they're making decisions without having it's all based on opinion, not facts. They don't go out and listen to people and actually experience it. And 2 of the best things I've seen as far as school engagement is Warrington and Hull. So Warrington, there were 7 community clubs in Warrington, and they divide the first team squad up, and at the start of the year, they have each 3 players per club go and coach throughout the whole season. They have to go as part of the duty for the club as a player, and they coach different ages of teams, and then at the end of the year, they have a competition. So those players coach against the other players, and they really bought into the club, and they all wear these kits. So like Ashton Simmons, when he was there with Woolston Rovers, and he loved it. And he goes to Woolston and he'll have a pint and he loves it, and his kids play for that team, and it just showed that real good community engagement. And on the other side with Hull, Lee Radford, who is brilliant. I know he's having a real tough time at the moment, but he's been a real visionary for Hull, and he's brought a lot to him community-wise, real community man. He made his players go to the high schools in Hull, and he split the first team squad up across all the high schools, and the players had to go and coach the high school team. And then they had a competition exactly the same, and it's a schools day, and it's at their training camp, which is now called the Boulevard. Brilliant. And I went up there and watched it all, and we filmed there, and there were 30 schools, I think 15 schools, 2 age groups per school, all coached by the players. Every team had a player who were coaching them, and they'd done it all year. And that's one way that Super League can help schools. If they just use those 2 models and just roll it out, it'd definitely help. But I think that's about a wrap. So thank you so much to our partners tonight. Without you guys, it wouldn't have been possible. Paul Sidulo, absolutely outstanding. Martin, would you like the final word, just to say thanks to everyone? Have you got the microphone, wherever the microphone might be?
We'll keep it brief anyway. I said at the start of this that these guys were absolute legends, and just can see in the audience's faces, just listening to what they've had to say. I think they've been getting a bit jaded the last 10 minutes because they've been getting a bit ratty with each other a bit, I think, can't they? And I think we've called the time on it pretty well. Thanks again to our sponsors. I just would say, this is the time. We've got Brandsmiths over here, Afex. The good thing about tonight, we've talked a lot about why you should get involved with business. The interesting thing about Toronto Wolfpack is there are more British businesses investing in Toronto Wolfpack than Canadian at the moment. And I've been pretty impressed by some astute businesses who have got behind this. Doing some of the things the guys were saying. We did a deal 2 weeks ago with a technology company, £250,000. And the asset that they've bought is a small part of the shirt. Now, I've been a CEO at a Super League club where what they spent would have bought the front of the shirt for 8 years. And the reason they want to do that, because they're a Bolton-based company, but they know blockchain technology, the home of it is Toronto. And they know that's where their marketplace is. And when they first met me, it was at the Warrington game where we got beat 60-0, and they're still stuck with us. But they said, our brand's about being a disruptive technology. And Toronto Wolfpack are the disruptive influence on Rugby League. And there's some clever, astute people in Manchester there, in Leeds here tonight. And, when people come with that attitude, they're coming post-Brexit to do business with Canada. And, you come and have a chat to Afex, Barrie, Brandsmith. You buy some stock from Mascot Brown at the back. Because if you want to wear your Tongan shirt and be the king of Tonga,
I bought one.
You go and do that.
I went online and bought one.
But
Phil supported me.
But the real, beauty tonight, know some of you need to get away, but if anyone wants to come and have a chat with us, I'd just like to thank all the panel. First-class job that they've done. Really interesting, entertaining night for us all. If you could just kind of show your thanks to you as well.
Well done, mate.